happening. So I'll be sure to find out how it went.
Well, Mayor Warner didn't have the big puffy pants, but we have smaller waist, but he did, you know, he's kind of got a thing with his legs. So we had a stand in for him. He had a body double.
Okay, I'll be sure to get
for some of the scenes. So just plain silliness.
Well, it's 4 o'clock and I think that we are streaming live. Are we good to go?
Yes, we're good.
Okay, if you would call the roll, please, I'll call the meeting to order right at 4 o'clock.
Okay, Vice Chair Bonanno,
Present.
Director Brown,
Here.
Director Halbert,
Here.
Chair Josie.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So our first order of business is the meeting is open to the public. If there are any members in the audience who wish to the committee, they may do so now. You're limited to 3 minutes. And this is for items that are not on the agenda, and we will take no action on these items. Do we have any public speakers?
There are no speakers in the public, and I didn't receive any comment via email.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. We'll go on to item 4 then, minutes from our last meeting.
Move approval.
Questions? We have a motion from David Howard. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Great. Second by Bonanno. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Vice Chair Bonanno,
Aye.
Director Brown,
Hi.
Director Halbert,
Aye.
Chair Josie.
Aye.
Passes.
Thank you. And we will move on to item number 5, which is a resolution in support of allocation request for Regional Measure 2 funding for the Shared Autonomous Vehicle Phase 2 development project. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jennifer Yeamans. Before you today is a resolution. I'm requesting the committee refer to the board for approval. This resolution is in support for regional funding from the Metropolitan Transportation Committee, Metropolitan Transportation Commission for $150,000 for design work toward initiating phase 2 of the Shared Autonomous Vehicle Deployment Project. So this is kind of a new milestone in the course of this project, and I think this committee is well familiar of in terms of the phase 1 testing we've conducted to date. This funding has been made available by MTC in order to advance the project into the next phase, which will substantially include acquisition of 3 next generation vehicles, expansion of the route to the Zeiss Business Park, about a mile away from the East Dublin Pleasanton BART station, as well as some associated improvements to both the traffic signal and pedestrian facilities needed. So this resolution is required by MTC in order for us to receive the funding. The project sponsor will actually be the Alameda County Transportation Commission. That is due to how the Regional Measure 2 legislation is written in order to access these funds for capital purposes. The enabling legislation names Alameda CTC as the project sponsor. So there will be a concurrent action taken up by ACTC in September to sponsor the project and to designate LAVTA as the implementing agency. If all of that goes smoothly as expected, then MTC would make the allocation in October. At that point, we would complete the design work for the project as described in the attachment to your staff report. In terms of what the design engineering work would accomplish, it would basically be the intersection work and the design work on the passenger facilities in particular. The current schedule would have that work taking place until May of 2022. And when that's completed, MTC has signaled that we would then be able to come in for a subsequent allocation request for the remaining amount toward the total of $2.7 million towards the project. So that would probably occur sometime in the middle of 2022. So that's kind of where we are with this project today. Getting this funding in place is obviously a key piece. So with that, just to reiterate, staff's recommendation is that the Projects and Services Committee refer Resolution 26/2021 to the Board of Directors for approval in support of this allocation request of $150,000 to the Metropolitan Transportation Commission to advance the Phase 2 deployment of the Shared Autonomous Vehicle Project. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I have one.
Okay.
So I'm sure the rest of you probably know this project a little bit better than I do, but Jennifer, if you could just very quickly, what this project is multiple phases. I understand what we're doing in this phase and what you've said in the report, but when does this project stop? When does this project end? And what is completed when it ends? And then what happens then, at least in the vision for the overall deployment of these autonomous vehicles?
So just to clarify, today's action only commits LAVTA to carrying out the design engineering work associated with Phase 2. That is all MTC will commit to at this time, either until we give them the deliverables of our design engineering work. Then following the construction phase, if we go to the next step with the successful completion of the design engineering phase, we would acquire the vehicles, and then there would be an ongoing operations and maintenance phase beyond the construction phase. And when I say construction, I mean both the construction of the facilities as well as the vehicle acquisition. So beyond the construction phase would then be ongoing O&M.
And I know no commitment to where this goes beyond that, but is there a vision for expanding this fleet, putting them into service more generally? I mean, I just don't see the longer term vision, regardless of whether it doesn't have secured funding at this point, and we don't really know what the time frame might be.
So I can speak to the funding and plan and some of the planning side, but since Tone, the project manager, is here, I will invite him to speak to that if you want, in terms of the agency's overall strategy.
Right, thanks. That's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Sure. So as Jennifer alluded to, we recently completed Phase 1 of the project, which consists of us leasing one vehicle and operating on a very short corridor. So taking lessons learned from there, we're developing a business plan to extend the route to go to the business park off of Central Parkway between Arno and Hacienda. The goal is to provide a first and last mile connection. So a more robust service that can connect to the BART, so operating 10 to 15 minute frequency. That's why instead of one vehicle, we're looking to purchasing 3 to be able to provide that short headway. So this money will allow us to install the communication system at the intersection, as well as the purchase of 3 vehicles, and also the passenger amenities for the shelters that will be constructed at the end of the line, which will be somewhere in the neighborhood between Zeiss and where the Ross corporate headquarters is, and another one at the BART station. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, you did. It seems like this is a fairly discrete plan that has a beginning and an end. And I mean, whether we see these vehicles proliferate and we're doing more routes to more places is sort of not really on the radar yet. Is that fair?
Yes, and our goal is not to have an end, and that the operation continues.
Agreed. Okay, good. Thank you for that. I appreciate the background.
Okay. Chair
Chair Josie.
Yes.
Director Halbert raised his hands first, and then Director Brown.
Yes, I see them. Thank you. Mr. Halbert.
Yeah, so how much of the 150 is for, I guess I think I heard that we are leasing the buses?
The lease is associated with the first phase, which was the contract with Transdev, the operator, and Easy Mile, the vehicle manufacturer. But that phase has ended. So this 150 is going toward the second phase, which will be an upgrade model of the vehicle. But the 150 itself will cover the PS&E design for the intersection and the passenger amenities or shelters.
Okay, so then where's the cost of the vehicle coming?
That will come with the second request. Jennifer, Would you mind elaborating on that?
Sure. So MTC requires with Regional Measure 2 funding they will only fund what they call a minimum operable segment. So they're only going to give us one phase of funding at a time. So for now, we get the design engineering funding to tee up the construction phase. When we've completed that, we've shown them our deliverables, we're ready to proceed, then the commission would entertain a subsequent allocation request. And what this means is they've kind of got that funding set aside for us for the successful completion of our design engineering work. They obviously don't want us to proceed with work that's never going to get constructed, right? But it's not going to be available to us until we've completed the design work.
Have we talked to any of the businesses to see if their employees take part? How many, and would they take advantage of these shuttles?
Yes, those efforts are currently underway. We've been in discussion with Brookfield, who is the developer of the resident units at the corner of the northwest corner of Arnold and Dublin Boulevard. We also have spoken to Zeiss. They have provided a level of support for our last IDEA grant application, and the Ross corporate folks. So we have been working with them to set up potential partnership opportunities where they would subsidize the rides for their employees, and also for the resident at the Brookfield development.
I note that there are other businesses nearby, TriNet, AI, Park One, office building. Gene probably knows others. I would encourage us to reach out to them.
Patelco is also there.
Yeah, Patelco, good point. I drive by it every day, but I can't remember the name of the place. Yeah, Patelco, good point. I think Amazon Web Services is going to be moving into the old Zeiss building at some point. So anyway, I'm sure we'll do a good job with reaching out to them. And once it's running, people will see it. I guess another question I have, just dig in a little deeper. The current line that we're operating, is it, what is our experience with that? Should we keep that going? Is enough people using it? Do we repurpose that bus otherwise? And then what would we say would be successful? If one person a day rides it, if 10 people a day ride it, if we need 100 people a day to feel good about it, what metrics of success, if any, have we identified either for the existing line or for this next phase, this next line?
So the existing line ended on July 31st. And that was a lease vehicle. So the vehicle has been returned to Easy Mile. In terms of the experience of the service, I think we gained a lot of experience in terms of how the vehicle operate in certain conditions. I think the primary goal of the first phase wasn't to, I think we recognized since the vehicle wasn't able to travel very fast. I don't think our goal was to generate a lot of ridership, but I think it was to generate a lot of interest to get people used to the technology. And I think we were successful in doing that based on some of the input that was provided by both the riders and the public who actually walked up to the safety operator and talked to him about the vehicle. So we did complete a feasibility study. So that's something we can share to this committee and the board if you're interested in reading that document.
So how many people are going to ride it? I'm sorry, go ahead, Gene.
I was just going to say phase one was really proof of concept. It didn't go anywhere terribly useful. It just sort of went back and forth to test the technology, to test the signage, to see, it's sort of a, as we say in the Navy, shakedown cruise, right? To make sure that it really worked the way we wanted it to work. And now phase two is really the, where the rubber meets the road to do something useful with it on a useful interval and to someplace that actually has people that want to get to BART, correct?
Yes, that's very well said. Because of the type of vehicle that was used in phase one, we didn't have a lot of flexibility in changing the route. The route was approved by NHTSA, so we had to operate that route. It would have taken 3 to 6 months just to get the new route approved, and we didn't think we had that type of time, that kind of time to modify it.
It didn't go anywhere useful. I maybe I missed something. I thought it would have gone somewhere.
So
Gene, do you remember where it went? Where did it end up? Or did it just go in circles?
So it started at the Dublin parking structure.
Yeah, I vaguely remember way back in my memory banks.
And it went east and out to Mariano, and it made a left on Arnold, and it will make a U-turn at Marnelli. And there's a station at that corner, and then it will make its way back to the park.
Yeah, and I remember watching it from a distance as I was driving down Hacienda, seeing it move, so I know it was there. But okay, I guess as Gene said very well, that this will go to more of a useful place. So we will see. I guess we're going to document how many people we do get to ride it.
Yes.
All right.
And I might point out that there's maps in our packet of both the phase one route and the phase two route.
Yeah, I was just looking at the resolution that we were gonna put out there. All right.
Any other questions, Mr. Howard?
Nope.
Okay, Ms. Brown, do you have some questions?
I do, thank you. I'll lower my hand real quick. I remember having the discussion when we were doing the test of the first SAV being in Dublin. And to David's point, we were talking about where it can even go at times, especially during COVID. And the supervisor at the time, Haggerty said, maybe we can take it to the jail. We were trying to find somewhere we could go that was slow. So now that we're looking at 3 potential vehicles, my question is actually to Mr. Tree. So I know he's focusing here, but when, I do not recall, so I need your help. When did the board ever approve any multiple units would all go in Dublin? Because BART is shared on both sides with, over on the Pleasanton side, just not be competitive, but, you know, share the resources, which has always been our policy. So when maybe new members, if you're not aware, it's very equally shared bus routes, and the amount of miles and vehicle access that buses services are allocated to Pleasanton, Dublin, and Livermore. And here we have a very valuable asset. Of course, we've got Workday and Kaiser IT and many companies within Hacienda Business Park. Why aren't the SAVs being shared between Dublin, Pleasanton, and Livermore?
You hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I'm on. Well, I think we've been talking about this project for a while, and I think the key with this project is that for it to be a first last mile solution that actually works, it needs to pulse with the BART system, which means that there really needs to be a vehicle every 15 minutes leaving the hubs or the bus stops in the project. Anything short of that, and you wouldn't get what's considered a very convenient system, a scheduleless system, if you will, where you don't have to carry around a schedule in your pocket. In regard to the potential for an SAV project in Hacienda or elsewhere within the system, whether that be up at Las Positas College or whether it be with the labs in Livermore, we've been, happy to work on a project. Long story short, if the board wants to unwind whether or not that route is in Dublin or in another city, we could certainly have that discussion. I think the momentum has been in Dublin, where the city staff has been really aggressive at working with LAVTA in being able to put the project together, which has a lot of complexities to it. And then you also, you have a lot of momentum now at ACTC. So I'm not sure we've ever officially had a board action that we would change where the demonstration project is and the route. We've been just building off of the current progress. But would be happy to have a conversation. We just have not had the level of engagement from the city of Pleasanton or the city of Livermore in regard to a demonstration project.
No, it was very strongly pushed with Haggerty for Dublin, which is fine. I'm talking about if you acquire 3 vehicles and you're looking to route them on a most rapid basis all in Dublin. I would like at least have that discussion at the board level. If it means that, the partnership wants to bring this forward because the amount of resources that have been invested as a test case, fine. But if you're actually going to have 3 units, I have lots of businesses, and I will tell you, my traffic engineers will work with LAVTA. It is because we were told the first SAV was going to be in Dublin, and nobody argued. So just to be clear, it wasn't an issue. But if you're going to have 3 units, then I'd like to at least have the discussion about parity and equality that has been the basis of our program since the LAVTA inception for the 3 cities.
I mean,
For 3
units
units.
to bring back that as a conversation piece. I will tell you that of the 3 member agencies, Dublin is substantially carrying less revenue hours than the other 2 member agencies. So certainly that'll be part of the mix. It would be happy to bring it back. We're just building on basically what we've started in the demonstration project. And I think anything less than 15-minute frequency would not be as well received in regard to demand from the business park. Tone, we did do some initial modeling of the ridership based on that 15-minute frequency. I'm not sure if you have those numbers, at your fingertips, but.
I do. So based on the forecast that was conducted by a consultant, I think they projected to have around 300 commuters coming in and out of that BART station. So with the assumption of, I think, just 5% of those people taking the SAV shuttle, it would equate to about 300 riders a day if we talk about round trips. So,
I drive by the BART parking lot on a regular basis, and there's like 6 cars there. There just isn't ridership for BART, and we already have the rapid going in many of these areas right down Dublin Boulevard. Right?
So please note that the assumption is based on pre-COVID levels.
Okay, thank you. Member Bonanno.
Yeah, thanks. So this has been great to hear this, because I'm getting a little bit more up to speed on this. So I'll come back to maybe my original thought, which is what is the longer term, bigger vision for this? I mean, this is really cool. It sounds like 3 vehicles is, 3 times as many as we have now, but it still sounds pretty small scale compared to what I would think aspirationally LAVTA would like to do in this realm. And I don't know, maybe the vision's been painted very clearly. I mean, I know you guys are all over this too. This is, what people in your fields probably think is just as cool as I think it is, right? And you want to go this direction, and we're going to go this direction over time. But it still sounds like even phase 2, where we're going to somewhere useful, is still pretty minimal. So what could we at some point come back, and maybe I should just get a 1-on-1 or 2-on-1 with Michael and Tone and just sort of get a little bit more up to speed on the longer term vision, even if it's not funded, it's not even perhaps, designed even in a preliminary sense. Is that a reasonable request? I mean, maybe everybody else sort of gets it, but I'm happy to do a little extra homework with you guys, but it does seem to me that we're taking this kind of incrementally. When how many vehicles do we want to have in 5 or 10 years? We want them all over Livermore. We want them all over the system, I assume, at some level that makes sense, not to just spread them around for no good reason. But has there a study been done about how much use it would have at Las Positas, which I think is a great idea, how much use it would have at the labs? Valley Link will be here, and we'll want to, I'm just looking for the bigger picture, and it sounds like some of it's been developed. So I don't have a specific question. I'm just, again, very interested in this and would like to know more. Comment if you'd like. Otherwise, I will get maybe actually Michael, Jennifer, and Tone and I can talk offline.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I think the basic idea is that, I think the projection is that the shared autonomous vehicles will be viable, if you will be in mainstream production probably 7 years out, 7 to 8 years out. And so, the long-term vision is they're much less, there's much less cost involved in operating a shared autonomous vehicle. And you can find them in multiple sizes, a 6-passenger, a 12-passenger, a 20-passenger. And so the thought is long-term with public transit is that you develop your premium service, your rapid routes, for example, that are on main trunk lines. And then, of course, you have your BART system, which is kind of your main trunk line for the Bay Area with the rail. And that long-term, you would see the autonomous vehicles feeding into your rapid lines and your BART system, providing that, what they term the first last mile connection that Tone referred to. So, I think everyone's recognizing that autonomous technology is right around the corner. Our big goal with this project was to help advance the industry with knowledge from the testing and from doing a very simple project, such as this 1 mile project to the business park and back, and help them move along, the technology within public transit. But long-term vision, you can operate these as a fixed route or as a door-to-door service, but they're really envisioned as a feeder service into, your trunk lines.
Thank you. And if I could ask a question, the reason we need a design phase is that it's not just a matter of saying, oh, this would be a good route for that bus, and we've got 3 buses. It's because in order to run these autonomous vehicles, you need communication with the signals. The autonomous vehicles need to map out exactly where their landmarks are and their signs are, and they need to know a whole lot of detail about their route. So it's not just a matter of sort of plunking one of these vehicles down on a route that we've drawn on paper. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's the design of the intersections, the technology that's needed there, the upgrades, and then also you have a couple of bus stops in this simple phase 2 project where you'd need to probably design a unique shelter, for example, to plop down next to the stop sign so that folks can readily recognize a branding of the SAV project, which would easily be replicable elsewhere. But this is kind of your first moment to take a look at what a stop could look like and to design it.
Thank you. And it's staff's belief that you need 3 to make it really viable on the single route to start with, without setting ourselves up for failure, because we want to run it every 15 minutes.
Yeah, if you want to pulse with the BART system, 3 is going to give you that ability with some backup, a backup vehicle, so that as you have issues, one's down for preventative maintenance or whatnot, you've got another one right there. Reliability.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I'm just going to make a comment if I could. Thank you, Gina, for asking a great question, because I'll say, since I've been with on the board here with Wheels, the beginning was very cool, right? Just to have an SAV. It was a tool that we had the resources to work on, and as Michael said, move things forward. The speed that we're also finding out limitations. So correct me if I'm wrong, staff, but the speed, for example, limiting at 25 miles an hour does restrict many of the roads that this vehicle could go on. So it's part of that learning curve about what we can do and what's reasonable in our cost and what we're actually restricted to do. And I think this learning curve, as well as having hired contractors to work with SAV, we spent, Tony knows this, and so does Tone, meeting after meeting after meeting, what's going on with the SAV, and we just didn't have resources to be able to work on the project. So it has been a learning curve. Hats off to staff. It is unique and it's special and it's the future, but it has been a bumpy road. It has been a bumpy road, so we'll learn as we go. But it sure would be very exciting to have a whole bunch of little SAVs buzzing all around, shuttling people instead of our big buses one day. Right. Okay, thanks.
Great. If there are no more comments, then I'll call for a motion.
Move approval.
Second,
Okay, moved by Halbert, seconded by Brown. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
This is Jennifer. My computer's locked up. I'm gonna have to try to figure out why it's doing that. But Vice Chair Bonanno,
Aye.
Director Brown,
aye.
Director Halbert,
Aye.
Chair Josie.
Aye.
Passes.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to item number 6 then, which is the approval resolution with Kimley Horn and Associates for the bridging design services for the Atlantis Transit Facility. And I assume we have a staff report for this as well?
Yes, that'd be me.
Great.
So with the potential federal and state funding made available in the near future, staff took the Atlanta Transit Facility plans off the shelf and began work with Kimley Horn and Associate on getting the project shovel ready. That started about a year ago. And with the ACTC recently approving our funding request for bridging and design services, we are actually one step closer to accomplishing that goal. But before we go into the staff recommendation, I would like to have Mike Mowry from Kimley Horn and Associate provide a brief overview of all the efforts completed thus far and what the next contract task order for the bridging document will entail. So with that, I'll take away, Mike.
Thank you, Tone. Thank you, Chair Josie and directors. I believe many of you have seen previous presentations of this project, and as I'll discuss here in a minute, the project itself has not, from a design level, not moved forward significantly since it was last presented to you. That was in the interim, LAVTA seeking additional grant funding. So today's presentation is a bit more of a status update on the current design, and then where the design would evolve to within the bidding document phase. So let me share a PowerPoint to give that brief overview. Presentation for me, great. So the project overall is to look at a new campus for LAVTA and its bus maintenance facility, as well as a new administration and operations building. LAVTA a number of years ago has purchased a property in the Oaks Business Park, just off of Isabel Avenue, Highway 84 in Livermore, which is what you're seeing here as the red square on the map. The site itself, as we zoom in a little bit, existing today under the red hatch that you see along Discovery Drive, which is in this picture north is up, does have a paved site area today, which exists for fueling operations, as well as some bus storage. And then the north edge of the site and the south edge of the site are currently undeveloped in our greenfield. This is the site plan that we've generally worked with and has evolved over about the last year or so that we've been working on the project. This is a new iteration. The project was looked at previously once LAVTA bought the property, and there's been some evolution in what we've done here, both in the building design, but also some of the site layout. What you'll see is that generally the existing graded pad would remain. That is a cost-saving feature, and would continue to be used for, sorry, the webinar just let me know I was being recorded. Would be used for bus storage, and then the southern part of the site would be developed into a new maintenance building for all the buses, maybe some of the autonomous vehicles, as well as staff vehicles, and then the north part of the site for a new operations and administrations function for LAVTA. A little bit of detail, which I don't think we have presented before, is starting to really imagine these spaces in the admin and operations building. This facility is approximately 20,000 square feet. The operations function of it is generally in the part of the building you see on the lower part of the slide, that is the western side of the building, and the LAVTA administration functions in the upper part of the building you see here, which is the east part of the building. This is also showing an idea of what the outdoor spaces would look like for those two functions. What you're seeing on the top part of the image is really for LAVTA staff use for some outdoor lunches and seating areas. And then for the what you're seeing on the lower part of the image, understanding that would be most of the bus drivers and operators, that has some more lounge spaces to allow them to come to their shift early prior to starting their route, or if they're doing routes and have a break between them, gives them more space to dwell outside during those times. Quickly running through the images, understanding that each of you have seen these before. So here's our elevations. Probably a little bit easier to see is some of the orthogonal imagery. So this would be an image looking west southwest. So you'd be looking here at the courtyard on the left would be the LAVTA administration courtyard that I discussed before. In the foreground of the image would be the parking area for LAVTA employees, board members at board meetings, and guests. Then if I move to the next image, this would be the main entry, intentionally double height with some glasswork to start to show the central corridor of the building, which would be the main access path for the public, as well as the operators and LAVTA staff would use this central corridor and then essentially go to one of their two wings. And then again, the western facade. Now, what you'll notice is that these illustrative images don't completely reflect what you saw in the landscape images. That is something we will clean up as we continue to progress through the project. But because some of these areas will have at least some 4-foot height fencing to allow them to be a little bit more private for the operators and separate them a little bit more from the bus maintenance facility themselves. And then this would be the back side. So you'd be standing in the maintenance yard at this point, looking back at the LAVTA wing, LAVTA administration wing of the building. This is showing also starting to show some parking for passenger car fleet vehicles that could be there at the back of the building. What's not shown in here is there would also be some gate access just to the right of this image, which is shown on the site plan, but not necessarily represented in this illustration. And then the maintenance building, again, at the southern portion of the site, this would enter the driveway access that you're seeing in the lower left image of this image. It does exist today for the Atlantis facility. The intent would be to keep that as the main access for the buses returning for maintenance and overnight, and then also to use that for the maintenance facility as well. Obviously, lots of line work here. So the main thing I wanted to just say is that the maintenance building does have two very distinct functions. It does have some office locations for meetings, for trainings, for the supervisor positions. And then it certainly has a lot of areas for equipment, supplies, and storage, maintenance themselves, and then overall 6 bus bays for the typical bus size vehicle, 2 for the articulated larger buses, 2 smaller bays for, again, staff fleet vehicles, and maybe the autonomous vehicles, as well as the wash bays. So this mirrors, although also expands what is available today at the Rattan site. And again, I'll go through the elevations a little bit quicker just because there's so much line work. Hopefully you start to see this image as the main entrance to the maintenance building for the maintenance employees in the office areas. Start to mirror the office building itself. That's intentional. Some of the glasswork, some of the materials on the external facades are intended to really have the buildings speak to one another, as my architects would say. This would be an elevation on the north, or an illustrative image that shows that elevation on the north. The reason I picked it is there is a smaller outdoor area, but still an outdoor area for the discrete staff that would be here at the maintenance facility. So there is very specific staff that works on the maintenance of the vehicles and would typically be working in this building, and then the operators working out of the other building, and then obviously operate the fleet. With that, I certainly will take any questions you may have. That was intentionally a quick overview. Next steps. So we've gone through the planning and conceptual design phase, and the schematic design phase is what I just represented in the select images that we produced. The next step is really to produce 60% bridging documents. LAVTA staff has the intent after this next stage to have a contracting team come forward in a design build process to ultimately finish the design and build the project. So this would be to create bid level designs. What you will see at the end of that process is a lot more detailed drawing sets, a lot more specifications for materials, fits and finishes, as well as just more detail that a contractor and their team could bid upon. And LAVTA will go through an overall bidding process in order to make that award. Also, city planning process. So we did engage City of Livermore staff early in the concept stage to understand current zoning and other background information on the project. It's time to go forward with them again on an overall planning approval. We've contacted city planning staff again, and they're ready for an intake of the overall set, which I showed you select images from today, to look at that overall planning approval through the city as well, which will be as part of this phase 3. This phase 3 will incorporate the overall CTE study recommendation, whether that be for the hydrogen fuel cell or electrification. So the site design that you see will also incorporate the ultimate recommendation of staff and approval by the board of which technology is chosen as part of that zero emission process. And then generally how supporting LAVTA staff, with the onboarding of a general contractor and their team as they then work on the project to move it forward, ultimately to build and a new campus for LAVTA in the WILS program. Sorry, Tone, I think you'd like to cover the staff recommendation.
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, 60% of what we're asking for the next task has been approved by ACTC. So staff recommends that the Project and Services Committee refer Resolution 27-2021 to the Board of Directors, authorizing the Executive Director to execute a contract task order with Kimberly Horn Associated for bridging and design services for the Atlanta Transit facility for a not to exceed amount of $902,000 with a contingency amount of $90,200 to be utilized at the discretion of the Executive Directors. So with that, Mike and I are available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Do I have any questions? Bonanno, Member Bonanno, and then Ms. Brown.
I think Mayor Brown was first. I saw
Okay.
her real hand, not her virtual hand.
I was just waving on it. So, all right. So thank you. Thank you, Mike, for your presentation. I have to admit, it felt a little, focused on certain areas. And I just want to make sure we're keeping the Atlantis bus wash that we have now. That's correct. And we're just adding these additional buildings.
That is correct.
Okay, good.
Generally, at grade area will remain intact as it is today.
Okay. And then question for Mr. Tree. Are we still renting bus parking spaces to commercial bus services?
We are. We still have the Google lease where they store their bus there.
Do you know when that wraps up so that we don't have a conflict?
I can get back with you. I'm not quite sure what the expiration date is. And tomorrow, feel free to chime in. I can't remember if it's a year-to-year contract, and there's probably like a 30-day exit clause if either one of us needs to terminate that contract. But I can
exactly.
Sure, yeah, I can.
Exactly. We're on year-to-year at this point.
Okay. We can work it out within a year window because this I know is long-term planning. And then my final question is regarding the architectural style. Mike, there was in the main administrative building, you had a 2-story kind of a shade structure with poles. And I thought I remember when we saw that plan at one point, the feedback from the board was it just looked so plain and industrial with plain metal poles that were coming up. Yeah, that one. Well, That one, thank you. That's the best one. So I don't know if you've heard that before, but the reason I asked the question is the shade, as you can see, transfers over to the building. It's only going to be directly down for people coming and going, I guess, high noon. It does get easily 100 degrees in Livermore. Was that intended to be a shade for the residents? And are we accomplishing what your goal is? Or would it be better to have a pitched roof of some sort?
So thank you for your question, Director Brown. So we did get that feedback, and again, I'll admit we took that board feedback, and then we were on pause as LAVTA received grant funding. So I think some of the elements that the board would like to see are here and just not probably well represented in this imagery. So as far as texture, what is showing on the wall that is getting the reflection and would also be a main feature wall is that the intent would be to have LAVTA logos, so the Wheels logo and LAVTA on this wall. And this wall actually does have a relief of a grid pattern coming off the wall. Again, I think this imagery, the light and dark isn't showing up as well as it could. So there was an intent to have some texture with that metalwork on this wall and then the signage on this wall as well. Both of those will be added in this phase. We have not incorporated yet the overall comment that you noted also about maybe this structure adding a bit more shade. That was the intent of some of these canopies over the windows, but we could look at how much this shade structure should be perforated for that shade.
Okay, thanks for the additional information because I love the texture on the building now that you've explained it. My only question is just, are we providing shade to the people that walk in and out, if that's your goal? Mm-hmm. And maybe you're providing shade for that multi-story entrance window too, which probably would get to be warm on a hot sunny day. So, all right, thanks for the additional information. Good.
Sorry, I was on mute. Director Bonanno.
Yeah, thanks for that. This is really cool. I love to see this kind of development in Livermore, obviously. So you've just been working with city staff. I mean, they'll do their architectural review. They obviously haven't gone to the planning commission yet from everything you said.
Correct. Yes, Director Bonanno. Yes, the city staff saw some initial images. They will see this whole package. Actually, they saw it late last week. So they are looking at it as a staff level now to determine what level of comments they would have going forward to Planning Commission. So I've also let them know that some of their elected officials have probably seen more of this than them so far, but we felt like this stage in the project would be the best time for them to see the overall planning. So this is arguably a little bit farther along than projects often come in during the initial planning phase, which I think will serve the project well for review at a Livermore staff level. Okay, good. So I have just some questions. So does this committee generally provide a level of architectural review? Is that one of the functions we have, or we sort of give you our perspectives and impressions of it, but really, I mean, it has to meet certain standards that the city has, but is one of the things you're looking from us at this point is architectural review to the extent we feel competent to do that? Or are we just saying this looks great, let the city of Livermore take care of it? I've not been on this side of the equation, so I'm just curious. I do think this is a committee we received. Sorry, thank you for your question, Director Bonanno. We have received that input from both the projects committee as well as the board before. So I know as a new director, you may have new input. We're happy to take that into the next phase of design for this project. And just to Director Brown's question, what's the exposure on that shade area there? I lost my. That would be that's a north facing. So we would be looking south directly at the building now. Let me actually change to another image. So so this element, hopefully you can see my cursor. This would all be a north face of the building. And then if I go a few slides backwards, this would be the south face of the building now. So certainly the southern face will get the majority of the sun exposure in the afternoons. all of this area will get certainly Livermore heat. I'm also a Livermore resident, but the southern exposure will likely see the most treatment to try to remedy some of that.
Yeah, okay, good. I mean, I think those are good comments, and I think that's important. As we know, it does get warmer in Livermore, and there's a lot of bright reflective surfaces there. I generally like the architecture. I'm not going to comment too much on it. I think it looks pretty cool. I think it looks modern and has almost an airport terminal kind of look, which some people like, some people don't. I think it looks pretty cool. Is there going to be any kind of LEED certification as part of the design, part of the engineering?
We have not, thank you for your question. We have not been directed to seek a LEED, specific LEED credential with California Green or Cal Green Building Code. Generally, that's equitable to a LEED silver certification. But again, LAVTA staff hasn't directed us if they would want the post-construction LEED certification, looking right now if that were true towards a silver certification.
And two more quick questions. Who owns the property at this point? It's obviously it's available property. I just don't know what the current situation of the property is.
Well, LAVTA, I'll admit, Director Tree or Operations Manager Tone would have to tell me what entity under it, but the agency owns this property.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. That was more curiosity. Last question is related to the zero emission initiatives. And again, maybe this is something I'll just try to get better acquainted with offline. So there's going to be a decision, I guess, to go conventional EV versus fuel cell for the next generation fleet. Is that roughly what's planned? And I guess my question is more about hydrogen and supply of hydrogen. Again, it may not be appropriate for this item. In fact, it probably isn't appropriate for this item, but I am interested in getting a little bit more informed about how those trade-offs are being made, how the decision is going to be made, and things like where the hydrogen supply comes from, et cetera, and what its pedigree is. Where does the hydrogen come from? Is it clean? Is it coming from natural gas, which is not as good as if we find other ways to make it. So those are general comments about my interest in knowing more about that. And if there's anything you can add now, great, but otherwise I don't want to bog things down.
Michael, will you want me to take that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the short answer is that in September at your board meeting, you'll have an informational item where you'll be brought up to speed on the zero emission path for the agency that the consultant and the staff are recommending. And given the construction of the hydrogen distribution center here locally in Livermore, staff's been working really closely with First Element Fuel to get an advantageous hydrogen cost for the system. And so we're definitely working with our consultants on the hydrogen path. But a full update at your board meeting in September, an informational item.
Great, thank you very much.
Director Howard.
Move approval.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Second it myself then. Can we have a roll call?
Vice Chair Bonanno,
Aye.
Director Brown,
Yes.
Director Howard,
Aye.
Chair Josie.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, wonderful. We'll move on to the director's report then.
Hey, Gina, before we go on, Gina, the building never looks as cool as the photos, and the trees are never as large as they are in the photos. And so just be careful, beware.
I understand. I was on the planning commission for 6 years.
All right, you know what we're talking about.
Those are 20-year trees, but still, I thought it looked pretty good. Thank you.
All right.
Sounds great. Well, listen, I put together some things in the executive director's report. There are a few things that aren't in the report, and I thought maybe we could hit on those first. Certainly the big push at the agency over the last month or so has been getting ready for the school tripper service. And so I think I saw Tony on the Zoom call. Tony, if you want to bring the board up to speed on that.
We are in week 3 now of school. Pleasanton was the first one to go back Wednesday, 2 weeks ago, and then last week they went for 3 days the first week, and then last week Dublin went for 5 days, and starting tomorrow, Livermore joins the crowd. And for the most part, I would say that things have gone rather well. We've had, as I've sent an email to the board the last 2 Fridays, we've had some hiccups along the way, and encountered traffic the likes of we've not seen before, especially I would say to Foothill High School, extremely challenging there. And both morning and afternoon, Village Parkway in the neighborhood of Dublin High School is an interesting maneuver, to say the least. Our ridership has been good, and we're currently running at about 70 to 80% of where we were pre-COVID, which is that's a pretty good number compared to our fixed route system. We actually hit 3,000 riders for a day last Wednesday. That was the first time we've seen that many people since St. Patrick's Day a year ago. So we'll see tomorrow. Typically, Livermore schools would carry about 500 students per day. So I would expect that to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 350 or so. And I believe the report said Dublin, we were carrying about 600 per day last week, and Pleasanton was about 800. We did, I think there was also some mention about some COVID cases. I checked the Pleasanton website, unified website today. They had 25 more reported positive cases last week. 20 of those were students, and the remainder were faculty and staff. Of those students, only 7 were in middle and high school. So they have, as far as I know, added to their protocol of contact tracing, asking how the student arrived at the school so that we can assist them, if need be, with identifying who else that person may have been in contact with on our vehicle. I think I also mentioned the text messaging, which is a new product that we introduced. Tone's group in operations came up with this as a way for folks to get text messages when their school trips are operating more than 5 minutes late. And the reasoning is on those particular routes, there's only one trip in the morning and one trip in the evening. And so there's often consternation on the part of the parents if the bus is running late. Did I miss it? Or is it broken down? Is it not running? So now you can sign up for these text alerts, and you'll get a text alert if the bus is running 5 or more minutes late. It'll also tell you that the school has been notified that the bus is running late. And I can verify that it works because I signed up for all of them. And my phone was buzzing this morning as our buses were approaching Dublin High School. They were caught in traffic again. And so we were a little more than 5 minutes late getting to Dublin High School.
Great.
Great.
I can keep on moving if you'd like, Chair, or if there's any questions for Tony, certainly.
I don't see any hands up.
All right, sounds great. Well, hey, just, another couple of items that aren't in the executive director's report is over the last several months, staff has been preparing for the triennial audit. It's an audit that happens every 3 years, and it's really where auditors come in and from ground up, they take a look at how we do business, both from a business perspective of following the FTA guidelines, as well as from an operational standpoint. So it's something that staff takes seriously. It's kind of your report card to your peers in the transit agency as to how well you run your business, the agency. And we finished up the triennial audit since we've last met, and the results were really outstanding. So at a future board meeting, you'll have the opportunity to review the auditor's results, and then we can offer comment at that point. And also, every year randomly, the CHP comes in and they basically give us a list of buses and files that they would like to see. So it's something that happens very quickly. You can't really prepare for it. And we had our annual CHP audit happen since we last met. And the CHP looked at a variety of buses and the training records and drug and alcohol records, anything that would include safety, a perspective of safety. And the agency received the highest rating that it can receive from the CHP. So we put a little news release out on that. I think it's good for the residents to know that those inspections and audits happen, and that the agency has its house in order, so to speak. A couple of things just to highlight in the executive director's report. MTC did approve a little over $5 million for the agency from the American Rescue Plan Act. And so that is funding that certainly will allow us to continue in business through fiscal year 2022 and also into 2023. So that was really important for the agency, especially as we try and get back into offering the full level of service that we offered pre-COVID as we move forward in the recovery. We've already talked about the SAV project. Won't spend time talking about that. We've mentioned that the zero emission study is at a point where we'll brief the board in September and provide some recommendations. We had scheduled a meeting with the joint ad hoc committee with County Connection in regard to looking at the paratransit demonstration project and looking at the goals and how we'll measure those, and be able to move forward at the end of the demonstration project. County Connection had some illnesses going on throughout their agency, and so we've bumped that and are looking for a new date. Hopefully we can have that in early September. Probably you've seen in the media lots of information about this historic infrastructure bill that the House and the Senate have been working on. Funding levels coming into public transit substantially increase in that infrastructure package. So I think both from a perspective of LAVTA and a perspective of the Valley Link project, where we're pretty excited to be able to anticipate additional funding coming through the package that's ultimately reconciled and approved. I didn't put on here, but certainly we're working with the legislature in Sacramento in regard to the surplus that's available in the budget. And our lobbyist is working hard to try and attach the cost of Atlantis, the construction cost for Atlantis, into some of that surplus money, which would eventually flow through transit related accounts at the state level. So we're working hard to not only get that project ready to bid, but also to have the construction dollars to see it realized. And then finally, I put some information here in regard to the American Public Transit Association's conference. As Tony's mentioned on a couple of occasions, there's been some nice awards given to the agency, and that conference will be in November back in Orlando, and they'll formally, in person, hopefully we'll keep our fingers crossed, provide those recognitions at that conference. So if there's some interest from board members in regard to going to that conference and being a part of those celebrations, let staff know, let me know, and we have reserved funding in the budget which you have approved to have a couple of board members at least go back and be part of that if you're interested. I think that's about it. Just a lot going on, and so we're pretty excited about moving forward. I think the direction we're going is a good positive direction with a lot of the projects.
Thank you for that report. There's a lot of good news there. Obviously, congratulations again on the awards, and it's awfully nice that they're going to hand them to you in person, since last year that didn't happen, and you got cheated out of getting your award in person for Agency of the Year. So I'm excited that that's going to happen in person. And I also want to just congratulate all of you, particularly Tony, for the back to school coming off as smoothly as it did. I know he feels like it didn't go smoothly, but it's as smooth as it possibly could have gone, given the number of students we're talking about and the length of time it's been since they've actually been on buses. I know it's frustrating to have to deal with the parental traffic that does not necessarily follow the rules, but I think you guys are doing a great job, and the extra methods that you've implemented, the texting is particularly helpful for the parents and the students to know whether they've missed the bus or the bus is running late, and notifying the school as well when it's traffic that's bogging the buses down. It's super helpful, and adding the contact tracing step that somehow nobody at school thought to put in their list of things to ask about with the buses was also fabulous. So my hat's off to the tremendous job you guys are doing. Are there any other comments from board members?
No, just everything you said.
Dave, I saw your lips moving. Was that for us?
Keep up the good work.
Absolutely. Okay, if there's no other comments or questions, we'll move on. Preview of upcoming Projects and Services Committee items. Anything you want to mention to us other than what's in the report?
No, I don't think so. I think we need to populate some of those months. They look pretty lean, but I'll get with staff. I mean, there's a lot going on and a lot of things that I think will be before this committee for consideration in the next 3 months. So I'll get on and populate this agenda item.
Okay, thank you. And item 9, matter.
So if I could I guess it's almost, but Michael, when you come back for a previous meeting, will you give us an update once the students come in, what that balance of the cities are? Because that is critical. I don't know if we're still doing the ride sharing in Dublin, but once we have those students, it's so exciting to see so many students going back and riding wheels buses to get there, going back to school. But I'd really like to know, because it's really important. It's not just about the SAV, but we do want to have a balance of service for all 3 cities. Is that based on population?
Hey, Tamara, you remember what that formula is based on? It's been a while since I've looked at that formula.
No, Cyrus is actually the expert on that. Maybe Tony knows, but I believe Cyrus is left for the day. We could get back to you on that. I can't remember if it's population. It sounds like it's population, but I'm not positive.
Yeah, because of course some cities have moved up. Well, all cities have moved up in population, so we want to make sure we keep that fair. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Other items initiated by board members? Anybody have anything? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 27th. And with that, we will adjourn. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Yep.